The diabetes tech landscape is changing fast, and if you haven't heard of the Biolinq Shine yet, you need to watch this video because this device just created a new FDA category. This new de novo classification means the FDA recognized Biolinq Shine as a completely new kind of glucose sensor, one that doesn't use a traditional needle or filament under the skin. Let's unpack what that actually means, how it works, and why it's important for people living with type 2 diabetes. Normally, when a medical device gets cleared, it's compared to something that already exists. But de novo classification is different. It's reserved for devices that are so new they don't fit into any existing category. In this case, Biolinq Shine became the first needle-free biosensor for adults with type 2 diabetes who aren't using insulin. That means the FDA didn't just approve a product, it essentially created a new class of biosensors in the process. So, how does it work? Unlike current continuous glucose monitors that use a thin filament inserted under the skin using what we call an introducer needle, like Dexcom, G7, or Abbott Libre, Biolinq Shine relies on a microsensor array that sits much closer to the surface of the skin. It actually reminds me of the really hardcore pimple patches or an acupuncture mat, or if you've ever used like microneedling devices, it's very similar to the Biolinq array. The company says it is up to 20 times shallower than a traditional CGM sensor. So again, there's no introducer needle and no subcutaneous insertion. Instead, it reads glucose from the upper layers of interstitial fluid, similar to other CGMs, just accessed at a more superficial depth. And you don't need to pull out your phone every time you want to see what your blood sugar is. The patch itself shows real-time glucose feedback through a color-coded LED system. Blue shows in range, yellow is above range. The companion app then translates those colors into trends, linking your glucose changes with activity and sleep patterns. Do you also love a good color-coded qualitative number as opposed to just seeing the exact blood sugar number? Drop a quick yes or no in the comments and tell me your thoughts. Right now, the FDA clearance covers glucose monitoring only, but the company has said that the same platform could eventually track other biomarkers, things like lactate or even ketones, which could open the door for broader metabolic health tracking. I also feel like this would be really useful for people that are using SGLT2 medications like Jardiance and Farxiga. These medications have a risk for what we call euglycemic DKA. It would be really helpful to see the presence of ketones using a device like this in order to tell us maybe if there's something going on. Still, it's important to know that this first generation device provides qualitative feedback, meaning it tells you whether your glucose is above or in target range. So obviously you could not use this to dose insulin. Oddly reminiscent of those tablets that people used to pee on in order to tell us where our blood sugar was, and that was before we had blood glucometers. It's kind of like a throwback. Of course, the big question here is accuracy. So because the sensor sits higher in the skin, there's potential for a slightly different signal compared to the CGMs that go a bit deeper into the skin. Biolinq hasn't published peer-reviewed accuracy data yet, but that information will likely come once users start clinical trials and there are post-market studies. If accuracy proves strong and consistent, we may see some of the major players like Dexcom and Abbott exploring this needle-free or shallow sensor design in the next few years. If not, Biolinq may still find a niche for people who want glucose awareness without needing one of these medical-grade CGMs. As for the release and timing, Biolinq said it plans to launch in the US in early 2026. Pricing, of course, has not been announced. And we don't know whether it will be something that is covered by insurance. This is going to take a lot of reimbursement negotiations once it finally launches, if they do decide to go down that route. I'm wondering if possibly they will just keep it an over-the-counter device. And I really hope that because it's giving qualitative
data,
it's advertised to a broader audience, maybe the list price will be less than Stelo and Lingo. The FDA's decision to grant de novo clearance opens the door for more innovations in non-invasive metabolic tracking. It suggests that future devices might not just measure glucose, they might track multiple biomarkers to give a fuller picture of health. And for people living with type 2 diabetes who aren't on insulin, that could make continuous feedback far more accessible and less intimidating. If you want to stay ahead of what's changing in diabetes care, make sure to watch one of the other videos on this channel next. You'll learn more about the latest tools, trends, and evidence shaping the next generation of diabetes management.